Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my December wrap up. So I am currently in my Christmas pyjamas, but I thought that made complete sense seeing as I'm wrapping up December and it's fully allowed. It's not just that I didn't want to get changed. So to run you through the normal stats, in December I read 10 books, which is less than I really wanted to, but it's such an improvement on my past months really that I can't be one to complain. The total number of pages I read was 3,868, which is quite an improvement on the past couple months. So again, it's a win. And the average rating I gave out was a 3.2 stars. And that was made up by the following ratings. So I had one book I didn't rate, 2 2-stars, 2 2.5 stars, 2 3 stars, 1 4-star and 2 5-stars. 8 of the books I read were physical and 2 books were audiobooks. My statistics evened out at the average number of pages I read a day at 125, and the average length of the books I was reading was 387 pages. So starting off with the book I didn't rate, that was Secrets by Jacqueline Wilson. This one I struggled to give a rating because I remember how much I loved it as a child. This book got me into my love of Anne Frank and deep diving into elements of World War II, I should probably say. This is about Treasure in India. Treasure is from a council estate and India is from a very well-off family, and one day something happens where Treasure finds herself in a little bit of a pickle and India steps in to help. As I said, when I was a child I was really interested in this book and it opened up this whole world of things for me to learn about, and I did really appreciate that. So looking back, I really appreciate that that happened at the time, but this book was actually really stupid and I didn't really like it. So I'm glad that past me read it, but adult me could not get in the same headspace, and for that reason I've given it no rating. The first 2-star book I read was The Taking of Annie Thorne by CJ Tudor. I took this one away to America with me and finished it off on the plane on the way home, and I wish I would not have invested my time in this. This kind of sucked. So this is about a guy called, I don't even remember. I don't know, I forgot his name. This is about a guy who is going back to his hometown to be a teacher. When he lived in the town with his family, his young sister went missing, came back, and she was a different person when she came back. Pretty much. So he gets an email to say that this thing is happening again, that children are going missing, and he goes back to the town to work out what went on with his sister, pretty much. The whole thing was just weird and a bit stupid. I can't even remember much about it now because I genuinely finished it on the plane and I was tempted to leave it on the plane because I just did not want to bring it home. I even have a note in it that says, I hope you enjoy Chloe Reads Books, with my card, because I was going to leave it in the airport or the plane. Then I felt like it could be a threat to leave things in the airport. I just thought all things could probably go wrong. So I'm going to have to leave this somewhere because I've written in it and left my card. I don't know where yet. It's gonna have to go somewhere. Next up, I gave 2 stars to Montana Midwife by Cassie Miles. This is partly my fault, partly it was just a bit crap. This, although I thought it was a cowboy romance, it is not. It is a murder mystery with a romance subplot, which is fine, but the murder mystery sucked. So this is about Aiden and Tab, and there was a bit of a crush going on when they were younger, and Tab comes back to the area as a midwife, and Aiden has a rescue chopper and he comes to the rescue in this potential murder scene where his sister's boyfriend has been killed. There is a serial killer on the loose and they're trying to work out who it is while also just developing that relationship from before. The killer was so obvious that it hurt. This was only a tiny book, genuinely less than 300 pages and massive font, but it was so obvious it hurt, and for that reason it got 2 stars. The 2.5 stars actually went to a book that I already don't own anymore, and that is Court of the Vampire Queen by Katie Roberts. I read this with my patrons as our buddy read for the month and it was pure porn. It was about a young woman, or half vampire, Dampier, I don't know how you actually say it, who gets delivered to the home of a vampire and he is hers for doing whatever she wishes. This girl has been a prisoner effectively of her father and he has given her to this vampire. I think the smut starts on page 3. and it continues all the way throughout. We end up with 3 powerful vampires, a woman discovering her power, and a whole lot of sex. So yeah. Katie Robert is known for the Wicked Villain series, you know, Jafar, we love him, but I couldn't get on board with it in this one. It was just too much. It was just too much. So the story actually kind of sucked, and how they solved things through sexual acts was a little bit weird. More than a little bit weird. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense, and for that reason, 2.5 stars. Next up, the first audiobook I am rating is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. This is a dark academia murder mystery kind of book, and I, as I said, listened to it via audio. The thing is, I started the audiobook back in October, and it took me until mid-December to finish this one off, so that did like dampen my enjoyment a little bit. I found it quite hard to stick with. I'm not sure whether that was the audiobook element or just me. We will never know, but it was fun. I gave it 3 stars. It was definitely very tense towards the end, the big build up and finding out who was responsible for what, blah blah blah. But this is about a girl who is going to a prestigious college that I don't think she can afford it, is the first point. But then she doesn't really feel like she fits in. She wants to be the most popular girl, and it's not really working out for her. So she joins this, ends up in this group of friends, and there's some strange dynamics, there's some relationships, there's some potential cheating, there's a whole lot of stuff going on with the friendship dynamic, and the friendship dynamic is maybe 75% of the book, which I did enjoy, but the real tense stuff started happening when the murder plot started to come alive. I would recommend this one, but not like shout it from the rooftops. It was good. It was a good dark academia book, but it wasn't amazing. This is where my rating system is really flawed, because the next 3-star book is The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, and I didn't really like this one. 3 stars for me either means it's kind of, it was okay, like, or I could see why someone else would like it. So this one was our Chloe's Crime Scene Corner pick for the month, and sadly I didn't like it. I think it sold itself to be something it's not. So we start the book with a scene where there are 3 dead bodies in a house, and there is a baby that has been cared for in the house, and no one knows who she's been cared for by, how the people died. It's like a suicide plot gone wrong, but basically someone's been looking after the baby since this murder happened. And yeah, it's a bit cult filled, this book, which I wasn't expecting. I don't know how. No, I wasn't expecting that. All I read was the back, and it's quite a big book, all about how the family were living in their last few years of life, and that's kind of it, really. Like, yes, we find out how these people died, etc., but it wasn't that thrilling. So yeah, I've basically decided now that Lisa Jewell is not for me. I've read Then She Was Gone, which I think I gave 3.5 stars, Watching You, which I gave between 1 and 2 stars, and this, which I gave 3 stars. So I've decided she's not for me. Lots of people in the book club did enjoy this, but just not my cup of tea. Backtracking a little, because I missed a 2.5 star book, I was very confused there. I gave 2.5 stars to Destination Anywhere by Sarah Bernard. Sadly, this is my least favourite Sarah Bernard book, and I tell you for why. I do really enjoy Sarah's writing. It's a very easy to consume, but I found that I only love her books where I've had a personal experience relating to them. So I've loved Goodbye Perfect, and I loved A Quiet Kind of Thunder. A Quiet Kind of Thunder really emotionally moved me. If you do not know, that is about a girl who is mute and a boy who is deaf, and they develop a relationship. And for quite a lot of my childhood, I wasn't mute, but I would not speak. I know that sounds like the same thing. It's not. I would not speak. So I found that really, really moving and emotional, and I told Sarah that when I met her at Yelk. But this one made me just really angry and disappointed, and kind of cautious about what message this could be teaching teenagers, as obviously it's a YA book, that is the intended audience. But this is about a girl called, her name's already gone from my brain, Peyton. It's about a girl called Peyton who has gone through some stuff, and we find out what the stuff is later in the book. But what she has done is she's got on a plane with a backpack, no plans, and flown to Canada. She has lied to border police to get let in, but she's flown to Canada on a whim. Let's add to the fact that she is 17 and she has stolen her dad's credit card to pay for the trip. So already at the start of the book, if this wouldn't have been a gift from the lovely Becca, I would have DNF'd it because it was just too unrealistic for my liking. I know that I read unrealistic books, I read fantasies, but as a contemporary, I feel like there is an element you need to hit, especially with international travel as a minor. But if my child, maybe I'm just a very uncool future parent, if my child had stolen a credit card and then got on a flight long enough where I could contact authorities before she landed, there's no way she's getting through the border. She's being deported instantly and sent home with her tail between her legs. That does not happen in this book, and Peyton then goes on a excursion of finding herself across Canada, which is lovely. But the elements leading up to that, I could not forgive them. So I gave this book in my brain 3 stars for the journey across Canada, easily written, easily digestible, and then had to drop it for how just dumb it was and how it wouldn't happen. So 2.5 stars. Moving up to the 4-star book, it was Fall of Night by Rachel Kane, which is book 14 in the Morganville Vampires series. I love this series with my whole heart. I'm still here 14 books later and I'm very close to the end of my rereads now. Obviously, book 14, I can't tell you too much, but the whole premise is a town called Morganville that is run by vampires, and Claire is very, very intelligent. She starts college early at 16 and her parents don't want to send her too far away, so they send her to this tiny town of Morganville for a local college, which it ends up is run by vampires. In this book, we're a few years later by now, and this book is set outside of the setting of Morganville, and for me that really detracted from my enjoyment because it just, again, this is where my brain comes in. This one is a fantasy, there are vampires, but there are some ways that they interact with contemporary, modern, true laws, let's say, that just don't really tally up for me. So the setting of this book really detracted from my enjoyment, but I still loved hearing about the characters, I love their relationships, and I will encourage everyone to pick up this cheesy vampire series from book number 1, because book 14 still gets a 4 stars from me. And finally, moving on to the 2 5-star reads of the month, we have 2 completely different books. I will talk you through the reread first. This may have been my favourite book, but as a reread, I don't have too much to say. It is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Without making it too complicated, this is a vampire fantasy, let's just say that. And we follow Poppy, who is the maiden. So she has been told that she lives her life to then ascend to the gods and save their society and become one of the ascended. We don't actually find out what this is, and you're meant to be held in suspense for not knowing what that means. It's not explained to you vividly from the start. On my reread, I did annotate the book. That's not going to focus. I did annotate the book with all of my thoughts and feelings as I was reading, and I had an amazing time doing that. I definitely understood the society a lot more this time. I was way more invested in the relationship. Hawk is just... Faith knows. Hawk is... yes. And yeah, I don't know, I just felt like it was very obvious this time what the twist was. I'd guessed it the time before, but this time it genuinely, and I listened to the audiobook the time before, I should say, but this time reading it physically and actually like poring over the words, it was so obvious what was going to happen. But that didn't detract from my enjoyment at all. 5 stars, really enjoyed it, and I am very excited to carry on with the series. So a new to me 5-star book that I read this month is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely loved this book. I actually listened to the audiobook on my travels down to see Victoria. It took me a few hours to drive, so I got a solid 4 hours of audiobook in on my drive, and there wasn't much left. So this is about Hannah, who doesn't have like a base. She doesn't have a home, so she decides to move back to LA. Right? Yes. For a fresh start with her old best friend. And on her first night, they go to a bar and she has to make a decision whether to stay and drink with her high school ex-boyfriend or whether she should leave and go home with her best friend. These choices both have very distinct differences in her actions. So we end up then getting the full story from both sides as if she would have made the other choice. And I absolutely loved it. I felt like it was so intriguing. It could be confusing at times, especially because I was listening to the audiobook and it would just take me a second to click back in to what was happening in each storyline. But it was so intriguing because it wasn't like just a hint of what could have happened. We got the full story up to an epilogue for both actions and genuinely loved it. I think this is definitely up there with my favourite Taylor Jenkins reads, and yeah, it was perfect. I think this was a perfect book. So that is that one. Ended up the year on a high with 2 5-star reads. So there we go. Those are all of the books I read in December. Please do let me know down in the comments what your favourite read for December was. I would love to check them out. But really, that is all I have time for. So thank you very, very much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.